Hello YouTubers and welcome to the Budget Stacker. Today you'll notice I have this $1 bill prominently displayed amongst all my wonderful silver. Kept the gold off to the side for today, but there's a reason for that. I am going to do a video that essentially shows you the effects of inflation. Now, inflation is one of the big reasons that many of us do stack. We want to take this silver and gold, precious metals, and preserve our wealth over time, not a get-rich scheme or anything like that. And that's all because of losing faith in this fiat currency. This is all going to be about the U.S. dollar and inflation over the years, but many other countries have adopted the same inflationary habits, print more money, get more out there. Even countries that won't admit it essentially are doing the same thing. So they've all kind of learned from the bad habit that America set forth and are printing money like crazy, essentially slowly devaluating their own currency. So today I'm going to show you a little visual representation of how the spending power of your $1 does decrease over time, and has historically decreased over time, and what that looks like in real life. So if you want to see a visual representation of inflation, stay tuned, because here we go. Well, alrighty then, let's get into our visual representation of inflation. This is going to be off of the U.S. dollar, and these calculations of the incredible shrinking dollar all come from the U.S. Bureau of Labor Statistics. Now, some people think that those might be a little cooked numbers, but I don't think as much as some other countries that are just completely making stuff up. Not a lot of the well-known countries, but you know who I'm probably talking about. But anyway, we'll start with 1971. In 1971, the reason I'm picking that year is because that is the year that Richard Nixon took us off the gold standard. So U.S. dollars were no longer having any backing of gold at that point, taken off the gold standard, and that's the reason I'm picking that particular year. 2 is One has a great channel. He mentioned once about doing comparisons of dates, basically between the value of silver and the value of a dollar. And just kind of picking an arbitrary date. And I could see that because you could make it look better or worse, depending on the date you chose. So I just decided to choose the significant date of 1971 for this case, since that kind of changed the backing of the U.S. dollar at that point. So we'll start with 1971. In 1971, you could buy $1's worth of stuff. And basically, I'm going to cover these over the 5-year period. So from 1971 to 1976, it was a period of high inflation. We had inflation that essentially shrunk the value of the dollar by 28.57%. What does that look like? That looks like this. This is the size representation of what our dollar shrunk to in as of the 5-year period, 71 to 1976. So, pretty significant period of time. Not the normal rate of inflation, but as you can see, it took a chunk out of the spending power of the U.S. dollar. Now, a lot of people don't realize that, but each year you have inflation, it is operating off of what's left in the value of the dollar. So that's why we're showing you this representation here. So that's where we were in 1976. In 1976 to 1981, another 5-year period, we lost inflation got even worse at 35.89%. So the U.S. dollar, again, it's working off of what the value was before. It then shrank to this level. So not a good period of time. So in the next block of time, from 1981 to 1986, inflation did cool down a bit, but it was still at 20.63%. So the value of the dollar, as you can see, is getting smaller. Let's see, the next one we have here is from 1986 to 1991. And this is now the spending power of the U.S. dollar in 1991. That was down 18.69% during that 5-year period. The next period would be our 1991 to 1996. Inflation cooled a little bit during that 5-year period, 13.04%. But again, we had all that damage from the previous years, so that is the size of the spending power of the U.S. dollar at that point. Coming up in 1996, we did have 1996 to 2001, inflation shrunk the dollar by only 11.5%. Now, of course, as we get smaller and smaller, the percentage of what's left, it's going to get smaller and smaller. So this gets more and more difficult as we go along. But the next period, next year, 5-year period, 2001 to 2006, actually was the same inflation of 11.5%. So it shrunk what was left by another 11.5%. As you see, as the smaller amounts, spending power gets smaller, the percentages make it a little harder to differentiate the big change, but in some respects that's kind of good. 2006 to 2011, inflation brought down the value of the dollar by 9.9%, and now we're looking at this level here. In 2011 to 2016, inflation really started to cool down a bit. Only 7.4% was the difference on that one. And that brought the spending power of the dollar down to about this level. In the years 2016 to 2021, inflation heated up just a bit more at 9.09% for that period. That brought the spending value of the dollar down to about this level. And for 2021, I don't have a 5-year period, of course. It's only 2.5 years, but from January of 2021 to about July of 2023, we had inflation shrink the dollar an additional 14.52%. We don't know, where that will end up to be, but that brings us to this level of the original 1971 dollar spending power. Now, what that means over that period from January of 1971 to July of 2023, total inflation shrunk the dollar by 86.69%. So a 1971 dollar would not buy what it did in 1971. Essentially, you would need $7.68 that you had, essentially in spending power to equal the 1971 spending power. The current value of what we have compared to 1971 is about 13 cents. So that is what is left, over this considerable period of time, but that does show essentially what inflation has done. Now, the S&P 500, about February of 1971, if you were to have invested in that, was about 741.20 points. It was down at one point to about 357 in September of 1981. But if you were to have invested, let's just say in some generic equity fund that tracks the S&P 500. For that period of time, it would have been up about 83.4%. So that is, something to kind of say you don't want to just put your money in a mattress or put it in some place where it's not earning anything. I'm not giving you financial advice, but I'm just telling you that the reality is that the dollar, if it just sits there and somebody's under a mattress or something, it's shrinking away. So you got to have some method to at least fight that inflation, whether it be a savings account or investing in the market or investing in precious metals. Always a good idea not to put all your eggs in one basket, as an example of the S&P shows. But to give you another example, if you were just to look at the spot price in 1971 of silver, was $1.70 per ounce in 1971. And the range, that's just picking like a median point, the range was like $2 to $1.58 in 1970. So just kind of gives you an idea that, this precious metal and gold are going to fluctuate. But silver, actually, if you take it for that same approximate period of time, was up 92.27% over the spot of 1971. So as you can see, it's another method to help to kind of preserve your wealth. And, this is essentially what this poor little dollar has shrunken to since 1971. It does have an effect. Obviously, as the amount gets smaller, then the amount that's left is going to be pretty minuscule. But in an environment where they're talking about, hey, let's spend $100 billion here extra. Let's not have a budget. Let's just, play it by ear. And we don't care if the value goes up because, hey, GDP-wise, it's not so bad. But what they don't tell you, GDP includes government spending. So a lot of us are worried about the future of the fiat dollar, and that is why we essentially stack precious metals of gold and silver. I just wanted to give a kind of a visual representation of what inflation does to the humble fiat dollar. I'm still going to have some of these in my bank account for emergencies. You need that. Good to have a little bit of cash on hand just in case. But it is good to diversify your investments. I personally, for myself, my own situation, I think it's good to have some in silver and gold. A lot of us stackers feel the same way. I do not recommend you put all your eggs in one basket. It's not usually a good idea. But I don't know your financial situation, and I'm not giving you any advice in that respect. You got to do your own research and figure out what's best for your situation. So that is my video on the incredible shrinking dollar. Hopefully you found it enjoyable. If you did, please do give us a thumbs up. I love to hear your comments on what you think about the effects of inflation. And do you think that stacking silver and gold is a good way to kind of preserve some of that wealth over the years? It is a commodity. It's going to fluctuate. But love to hear your comments. Hope you're having a great day, evening, dusk. Please do give us a thumbs up if you enjoyed the video. And God bless and take care.